Hello and welcome once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I play and comment with a straight bat. Now, the title this time of my Straight Bat should tell you what I'm going to speak about, because this is election season and I want to raise a contentious question at the very outset, a simple direct question. Is the Election Commission in the country truly a neutral umpire, or has it now become a 12th man for the party in power? This is an issue that might immediately raise hackles, I know, in several quarters. Am I casting aspersions on the independence and integrity of the Election Commission? Well, my friends, yes and no. No, I have great respect for the institution of the Election Commission and some of the marvelous work that the Commission's various staff members do across this vast country. But yes, I do intend to question the manner in which the Commission appears to have been completely defanged in recent times and, dare I say, rendered toothless. What I seek to ask is simply this: can the Election Commission truly look at the government of the day in the eye and question its actions? The immediate provocation for this question are the happenings in West Bengal, a high-stakes state election perhaps like never before, one in which the ruling BJP at the centre has invested more political capital than in any other election in recent times. From the schedule of this 8-phase election to the removal of the officers to the new rules for election agents, it appears that the Election Commission is playing to the tune of the central government. And yes, West Bengal's recent track record of violence and intimidation at election time does necessitate, in my view, an elongated poll process with a large central paramilitary presence. But the poll calendar itself appears to have been drawn out in a manner that the BJP has the greater resources and the staying power to be able to last such a marathon race. Interestingly, even districts and towns have been carved up in different schedules in a manner that frankly doesn't make sense to an observer of elections over the years. Yes, West Bengal needs a level playing field, and yes, greater central force supervision is necessary to ensure that the gundagardi that we've seen in recent elections in West Bengal cannot take over. But it is all being done, I fear, in a manner that is creating a perception of the entire, dare I say, Modi Shah led Delhi army state machinery being pitted against Mamata Banerjee's Kolkata battalion. Has the Election Commission, for example, even tried to check the scale of resources that are being pumped into Bengal from Delhi? It is one thing, and it is entirely justifiable, to crack down on the muscle power of the Trinamool local gangs. But what of the money power of the BJP? Or is that beyond the control of the Election Commission? Remember, we've just had a judgment of the Supreme Court which has refused to stay the issue of election bonds during the assembly elections, despite the concerns being expressed by several credible RTI activists and even the Reserve Bank of India that these bonds are allowing election funding to be completely non-transparent and heavily biased towards the ruling party. Instead of challenging this Supreme Court order, at least expressing some disquiet over it, the EC has chosen to be silent. This was an issue on which the Election Commission should have spoken out loudly and fearlessly. The electoral bonds, my friends, have ensured that the ruling party gets a vast majority of the funds at election time, thereby negating the very concept of a level playing field during elections. Take also the manner in which rules governing the code of conduct are being routinely bypassed or violated. The most glaring example or the most prominent example is the Prime Minister's recent visit to Bangladesh when West Bengal was voting in the first phase, and it would seem to have been designed to influence voters in Bengal. In particular, the Prime Minister's visit to a Matua community temple in Bangladesh, even as areas with large Matua populations in West Bengal were voting, is a classic example of what some would call political ambush marketing or surrogate advertising or surrogate campaigning while polling was on. Yes, the Prime Minister could well claim that as the leader of the nation, he has to be in Bangladesh on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh's independence, and he was invited there, so this was all well known. My only question is it morally and ethically right to be performing then a symbolic act while in Bangladesh of influencing voters by going to a temple of a community that is voting during the election? Does this not amount in a sense to a violation of the poll code which says campaigning must end 48 hours before voting? Personally, I think the 48-hour rule should be changed. In this age of multimedia real-time communication, campaigning frankly should be allowed till the last hour before polling. But since that is not the case at the moment, leaders, particularly those at the highest pedestal in the country, are expected to follow the rules. Nor is this the first time, my friends, that we've seen such violations. In 2019 too, the Prime Minister went to the Kedarnath temple, was then pictured offering prayers at a temple dedicated to Lord Shiva, even as voting was to take place next day. The not so subtle messaging was frankly intended to influence voters in Bengal and Himachal Pradesh who were voting then in the Lok Sabha polls. Then too the opposition had protested, but the Election Commission chose not to act. Fact is, my friends, the Election Commission has regrettably failed to act whenever put to the test of adjudicating on the central government and its actions. Again, in the 2019 general elections, for example, the BJP leadership had brazenly appealed for votes in the name of the Pulwama martyrs and the Balakot airstrikes. This despite the fact that an advisory was issued in March 2019 by the Election Commission that had noted campaigners should desist from indulging in any political propaganda involving the activities of the defense forces. However, the three-member Election Commission chose to give the Modi-Shah leadership another clean chit. One of the commissioners, Ashok Lavasa, actually dissented and put up a dissent note. Guess what his reward was? His family was subject to an income tax inquiry and other parallel investigations. In August 2020, Mr. Lavasa resigned as Election Commissioner, even though he was next in line to become the Chief Election Commissioner, and was instead appointed to the Philippines-based Asian Development Bank. Was this the price Mr. Lavasa may have had to pay for questioning the government? Let's be clear, my friends. We expect the Election Commission of this country to stand up to power, not to be cowed down by it. It has enough constitutional protection to act as an independent authority. We expect, therefore, the Election Commission to have men and women of steel and substance who cannot be bullied. We expect them to be like the late T.N. Seshan, the former Chief Election Commissioner, who actually gave the commission a distinctive identity. Now, Seshan may have had a rumbustious persona that may have offended and infuriated several politicians in particular, but at least he was able to evoke the fear of the commission in the eyes of the politician. Today, truth be told, my friends, there is no fear of the Election Commission left. None whatsoever, and certainly not when you belong to the ruling party in power at the center. Which is why, and I say this with some element of regret, the commission is no longer being seen as a neutral umpire, but as a participant. as a 12th man in one team. And that is dangerous in a multi-party democracy. Let me ask just one question today as a postscript. Ahead of the Bihar elections, the Election Commission put in place COVID guidelines that were to be followed by all political parties and their supporters on masking and social distancing, for example. How many of these guidelines have been followed, and what has the EC done to really ensure enforcement? If an Aam Aadmi is being punished on the streets of Mumbai, for example, for not adhering to a COVID protocol, why should netas and party workers get away? In the end, a strong election commission will be judged by its actions and not by its words. Unless the election commission can show the gumption and the will to show a red card to our netas, especially the more powerful ones, it will be seen to be an institution that has turned a little yellow, or dare I say, pale saffron. Think about it. This was The Straight Bat. And do subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.